Jerry, I think that was amazing. I'd love to be there. I was wondering how you were going to capture all that data. So it's nice to see the hybrid approach. And I think it's a huge vision of what we actually do, something that I would love to do, I know personally, with the hospitals that I interact with. So thank you so much for that. So who am I? I'm Tim Brown. I am the president of Antidote Solutions. We are a Claris Platinum partner. I've held various positions in medical centers in New York City. And that's kind of driven me to what I do today, which is software development. And all those places, I never did any software development. I did a lot of analytical work. And finally, I was assigned developers to do a huge project at Northwell. And every time they told me, I asked them to do something, like, no, we can't do that. No, I can't do that. No, that's impossible. So I said, screw it, and this is back in '98. And I picked FileMaker up and have been working with it ever since, and now made a company out of it. So medical IoT, I'll just flip to another slide, but I want to give you a scenario, a story, and let's call her Jane. And Jane is a 72-year-old woman. She lives in Brooklyn alone. She was just discharged from a hospital and recovering from the flu. She has many comorbidities. She has high blood pressure. She's overweight. She lives in a 4-story walk-up, does not drive. And part of the discharge plan was to allow her to have a home health aide. And with that, maybe a nurse might come in an hour or two a week as well. So she has 6 hours a day of a home health aide, 5 days a week. But a home health aide is not a clinician, right? They just provide basic services, may cook for them, may help them out of bed, may bathe them. So there's nothing clinical going on there. So one of the most important things, and this is happening today at a lot of home health agencies, where they put devices in that can help monitor patients and track them. So a few days after Jane gets home, she has to call 911. Her blood pressure is through the roof. She goes to the emergency room, and now there's a readmission into the emergency room. They give her whatever medication comes, and now she's discharged back to home again. So that scenario of actually getting, that we're trying to prevent is that 911 call, right? And that can happen a lot of times. It can be prevented if there's early intervention. So what are we monitoring? Well, or why we're monitoring, right? We're monitoring because of quality, number one. And that's a better outcome for the patient. We know that they will do better at home. The other thing is that the hospitals, hospitals get reimbursed in a different way. But now the money side of it, the Benjamins, is about that we have the ability to do value-based pricing, that they get reimbursed based on the quality of care that they actually provide. And one of those key indicators is readmission rates. Okay, so let's move. So we're trying to lower admissions. So let's go to the next thing. So when we have these monitors in home, we're increasing all the touch points to that patient. We have a monitor, let's say it's a heart rate monitor, and this is kind of my IoT demo that you'll see in a minute. But the more we're able to touch this patient and provide information back to the office when no clinician is there, the better job we can do to manage the patient's care overall. So IoT can provide early intervention to the patients to prevent the scenario that we talked about before. So if this IoT device was in place, whether it was a high blood pressure cuff or something like that, then we would have known that the blood pressure was very, very high. So what are the type of things that we can use in the home health environment? There are a lot more than this, but these are just a few key ones. So you have your blood ox monitor. Everyone's seen them before. You go to the doctor, they put it on your finger, and they're measuring the oxygenation of your blood. That's something very easy. It's Bluetooth enabled, so very easy to implement. Obviously, a heart rate monitor is very simple to put in. But the biggest thing I thought was really cool was if someone falls, there's actually devices that actually track that you actually fell, and that can alert someone. So my whole thing was about learning about the technology. How many of you have used a Raspberry Pi before? What, is it cool? Anyone I was really geeking out about it, right? And I don't call myself a geek, but this is a Raspberry Pi. And they're really, really cheap. And there's more technology in this, and you've heard this adage before than there was on the Apollo, right? It is really, it's got an HDMI port, it's got a network connection, it's got Wi-Fi built in, it's got Bluetooth built in. There's 4 USB ports on this for $40. And you can connect it to a monitor, and you'll see that in a second. But what I was trying to do is to learn about the technology so I know how to implement it. So I went online, I bought a little heart rate monitor. You can see that little heart in the top left-hand corner, which I'm connecting to my sensor board, which has a little microprocessor on it. And then that also now is connecting to my Raspberry Pi, which I put Python, which is another scripting language, and then that will talk to the FileMaker REST API. So the actual operating system on this is Raspberry Pi. It's not, so you can't run FileMaker on it, but you could actually do like some type of web direct on this too. So you'll see there's hundreds or thousands of probably use cases that you could use this thing for. So this is my little scenario for it. Now, obviously, in doing this whole thing, you would not want to, put this in someone's home, right? This is more of on the top of a desk and research and stuff. But these do actually exist out there. So I was not building this for home health companies to put it into places. So I just want to make that a little bit clear. I think the FDA might be after me if I did something like that. So this is actually what it looks like on my desktop. So we have all these wires connecting to the sensor board. I can actually, there's the little heart rate monitor. You just put it on your thumb, and all of a sudden it'll start taking your pulse. The Python script will kick off and then send it to the FileMaker API. It's really, really a short amount of code, and you'll see that in 1 second. But thanks for all the libraries that are out there to make this really, really simple. And Dave Hammond, who actually wrote the FileMaker Python API libraries, was instrumental in making this very, very simple. So what can you do? So once you actually start receiving data into FileMaker, you can then do a whole bunch of things with it. You can compare it to what that patient's levels really should be. And if they're out of range for that specific patient, then you can send a text message, maybe to Jane's daughter, or maybe to the aide that's on site, because you know that there's an aide on site at that point in time. So there's a bunch of things that we can now do for interaction. And also, too, if you think about it, they never did the blood pressure cuff that day, and it never got in there. So an alert can be showing up on a clinician's board in the office to say, you better call the patient because we don't have their, don't have a monitoring result for them yet. So all this stuff is possible when you think about a workflow. So here is my code that's sitting on the Raspberry Pi that actually posts everything to FileMaker. To protect the innocent, I've changed the password, obviously, and whatnot. But it's only 30 lines of code to do this. You know, you think it would be a lot. But the key is all the imports at the very, very top, which is to set the different libraries in there that I'm using, okay? I'm not a Python expert. I don't pretend to be a Python expert. I had my son help me with this. So we kind of geeked out together for a couple of days on this. So it was fun. So this is the whole thing. Just to let you know, because some of you, more than half of you, have never seen a Raspberry Pi before, but you can see the HDMI cable coming off over the monitor, and you can kind of see that whole display up there is actually a rich GUI interface that you can work with it as if you were on any other computer. So I wasn't expecting that, and I thought it was really, really easy and cool to use. So now specifically, I created a FileMaker database to manage this patient's care. And right now there is one heart rate in there. I have the range that we want her to be within. So this is the right-hand side of the screen, obviously, where it says 78. And the range that she's supposed to be in with between 55 and 100 would be normal. Outside of that range, there's something seriously going on. And this is indicative if you have a low heart rate or even a high rate of some cardiac problem that's going to occur, and there should be intervention, okay? So if I'm going to run, I'm just going to run a little script on the left-hand side, which is just a little Python script that's going to talk to the FileMaker server, just randomly generating heart rates, and because it's not really a live demo. So I'm going to come in here. Hopefully I can do it. I think it just did a screenshot. Yeah, actually it didn't come across in the keynote. Let's see if we go back to it. And there it is. Play. It's actually coming in. It was moving. Let's try it again. It seems like on the, that's the problem when you're in the, let's get out of here, escape. Let's just run it right from here. So you can, whoop, now you see nothing. That's cool. Let's mirror it. And then we'll put it back for the other guys. I wasn't expecting that. So you can see like the WannaCalls are just floating in from the WannaCall script and just pausing it for a second so you can see, and how the ring kind of gets bigger. But now we can have events, and if something was over 100 or under 100, we could have an alert come in, obviously. And that would send out a message. We could have any one of those lines be read as a background, just to draw people's attention to it as a GUI interface for this whole thing. So that's all on the FileMaker side. And what you're looking at there on the right-hand side is actually the iPad of this when we did this whole thing. So you can do it from anywhere, obviously. So lastly, and I'll just go back into play mode, this is really important if you want to get into anything with the APIs. This is on the community boards. The first URL lists all the different APIs that are out there. And then specifically underneath what Dave Hammond did and their post of the FM REST, which is at GitHub, that is also linked in the top URL. So you can navigate down to his thing. And you can have at it and learn some Raspberry Pi and REST, and it's a fun exercise to do. So with that, I'm all done. Any questions?
How do you alert somebody?
How do you alert it?
If I have 1,000 patients and it's critical, how do you get an instant alert?
Well, the system would know that it's out of range. So you can set up Twilio, which we've done before, is you set up Twilio on the back end. We send an SMS message through Twilio to whoever the people are on the list that is set up for emergency contacts. And it could be internal too. So even at 24/7, someone who's actually a clinician monitoring could actually get that, who's ever doing on call. Cool. Yeah.
Tim, your slides are not in on the DEF CON site. Will you be posting the slides?
Yeah, we uploaded them, but I'm sure Rosemary will help me get it to where they need to go. Yeah.
How many devices did you or do you think you can
Well, I think it comes back to what Jerry was saying too. Like, you know, you could easily do like hundreds of these at any given point. I think when you start getting to thousands with this, I think you want to have a different back end of being a SQL. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
What scope of project does this kind of thing represent? Are we talking about, you know, in terms of hours of development, for example?
So in the real world, I would say that it's already going to be already done, right? And so you're going to be building an interface to a unit that's been completed, and therefore, you know, I would say probably if I was to take a hazard, I mean, I would say it's probably a couple months of integration setup, and then you have a platform for doing all of this stuff. I don't think it's too difficult. And then with the expansion of AWS, you can have multiple servers all over the place then talking to each other to load balance if you need to. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.